Hey, welcome and welcome back to the stash. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems to be the time for the end of certain eras. The other week we had the end of Zeb Wells as the Spider-Man writer, thank God, and now it's time for Nightwing fans to say goodbye to Tom Taylor. So join us today as we go over the last installment of Fallen Grayson, Nightwing issue 118. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick second to let you all know that here at The Stash, we are trying to reach 4,000 subscribers before the end of the month, and with your help, I know we can do it. So if you're new around here and you like Nightwing or just comic content in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. But anyway, with all that being said, it's time for... Our story begins with Nightwing seeming to finally put Zuko on the road to justice. His lifelong mission is so close to being a reality after all this time. Unfortunately, however, as the police car takes off, one of the officers has had his hand forced in order to protect his child. Meanwhile, Heartless is preparing for the big clash with Nightwing. Gerald shows some worry for Shelton due to his reckless habits. Blockbuster's heart has lasted longer than all the others, but it doesn't stop his body from wearing out. Heartless dismisses the concerns, for he swears he'll have a replacement heart soon. The heart of the city, the heart of his great enemy, Nightwing. Speaking of Dick Grayson, him and Barbara are viewing the latest video broadcast by Shelton, who's still fooling the world acting as Dick. He threatens the entirety of the city, warning that in 1 hour his men will destroy the entire haven. He suggests for the population to leave, however they have no issues if there must be bloodshed. After the message, Dick and Babs check in on their own team. Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain have investigated 7 of Shelton's sites in Bloodhaven and Gotham, however there's no sign of the kidnapped children. Batman can feel that they're getting closer to finding them and putting a stop to all the madness. Tim thankfully found 4 shell companies and their properties, which resulted in a worthwhile lead. Dick tells them to keep him posted. He's decided to head out. Grayson grabs Haley's lead and tells Barbara that he's finally going to clear his name. Fast forward an hour and things have started to properly escalate. Heartless and his men are preparing to carry out their threat, even against the wall of civilians standing tall, ready to defend their home. Heartless commands his men to begin and the trucks start to move forward with a thunderous roar, destroying the statue of Alfred in the process. But then, Dick Grayson slowly enters the scene. The public watch in confusion as all the pieces of the puzzle slowly come together. Dick stands his ground, exposing Heartless for his lies. Shelton uses his failsafe. He tells Dick he knows he's Nightwing. Grayson leans forward and tells him that he too knows a thing about secret identities, specifically who Heartless really is. This shocks Shelton to his core. Dick continues by telling him he's ready to face all the consequences that come with his dual identities becoming public, but he asked if he is prepared to face the same thing. Shelton is just still standing there stunned. Dick's phone begins to ring, so he excuses himself. It's his sister, the mayor. She informs him that she's with Oracle and that the Bat family did it. They found all the kidnapped victims. Grayson then exclaims to all the men working for Heartless that they no longer have to fear, for their kids are finally safe. They're free from his grasp, free from his corruption, and thus begins their revenge. Each and every one of them pile on Heartless, trying to give him a piece of their mind. Shelton, full of rage, backs them off and begins to make a run for it. Dick calmly hands his dog's lead to Elliot and sets off to chase Heartless. Shelton on the run prepares for his getaway and plans to meet at the docks. He also makes sure that Gerald has Zuko with him. As Dick tries to make up some ground, Haley bolts after her owner, leaving Elliot far behind. It's now or never for the bright night of Bloodhaven. Within a blink of an eye, Dick Grayson disappears and Nightwing enters the pursuit. Heartless leaps off the bridge, thinking that Dick still can't jump. He believes he's afraid. Heartless thinks he broke him, but unbeknown to him, Nightwing put himself back together. The boy Wonder leaps into the air gracefully as ever and lands an incredible kick to Shelton's head. But then with some twisted luck, Nightwing loses the advantage, for Gerald has a gun pointed right to his head. He's ready to shoot. Shelton only needs the heart. The head doesn't matter at all. But right before he's able to press the trigger, Haley lunges in for an attack, biting Gerald's arm and saving her owner. But in the process, Gerald manages to get a shot off as he falls into the river, never to be seen again. Nightwing rushes to his rescued pet, while Heartless turns towards Zuko with a crazed look in his eye. He begins to blame everything on him, especially how his whole reason for becoming Heartless was built on a false presumption. Shelton once thought he modeled himself off Tony Zuko, but now he knows better, And so he takes one last thing from Dick. He takes away his justice. Heartless gun without a second's notice shoots forth and kills Zuko in an instant. His lifeless body falls back. He was supposed to be put on trial. He was supposed to answer for his crimes. He was supposed to answer for what he did to Dick's parents. But now, thanks to Heartless, that's all been taken away from him. Nightwing gently places Haley down and stands in front of Heartless, more determined than ever to put this man behind bars. He lunges forward with a quick, powerful strike, but Dick dodges the attack and counters back with one of his own. Shelton tries to get under Nightwing's skin, but it horribly backfires. Each word that Dick says, each word that deconstructs the thing Shelton is, stabs him like a knife to the stomach. Nightwing's over people like Heartless. He's over the self-obsessed, the greedy, the entitled. He gets inside Shelton's head, telling him he thought he could buy strength, but he missed the key factor. He never put in the work. Heartless, blinded by rage, tries to strike at Dick, but once again, he swiftly evades the hit and counters, this time with an elbow to the back of the head. Heartless, pushed beyond his limits, grabs a shipping container, ready to kill his foe. However, it seems that his recklessness has finally got the better of him. He drops that container and falls to his knees, for Blockbuster's heart is finally dying. Dick asks Shelton what he has to do to save him. Shelton is shocked by the effort. Then, in pure desperation, he tries to rip Nightwing's heart out of his chest, for it's the only thing that could save him in time. But much to his annoyance, Nightwing shoves his arm away. Heartless lies on the ground, slowly meeting his demise. Nightwing calls him a waste. He lived an entire life and added nothing to the world. Shelton doesn't see it that way though. To him, he added so much more than that. He stole the hearts of 36 parents within Bloodhaven alone. That's more than enough for Shelton to die content, for everyone remember his name. Or so we thought, because in one final play, in one final attempt to take something near and dear from his enemy's heart, Nightwing swears no one will ever remember him. He'll make sure that Heartless will never be linked with his real name Shelton Lyle. Instead, the only people that will be remembered are his victims, all those that perished by his hand. They will be known, celebrated, while Heartless becomes a symbol of what the city can overcome, another savage evil who couldn't beat Bloodhaven. A constant reminder that this city can fight monsters and win. Sometime later, Dick Grayson goes to the cemetery to finally, after all this time, visit his parents. He went over all the recent events in his life and the plans for the future, from new buildings paying respect to heartless victims to newly set up trusts for children who now no longer have a guardian, for he couldn't let another child ever feel alone. He apologizes for not having visited before now. He believes that it's due to this feeling that he's had deep down. A part of him always knew it was supposed to be him, and the crushing guilt of that just kept him away. He sits there holding back tears. Melinda asks if he's okay, but he avoids the question. He then introduces his sister Melinda to his parents' grave and gives her a moment as he goes back to talk to Barbara. He thanks her for being there. Babs got him some flowers for the grave, and the two share a kiss. Dick walks over and places them gently. They're called Pennyworth Blue. Alfred bred them. He tells his parents that he looked after him, and that they would have loved Alfred. Dick then begins to whisper. He points out Barbara and shares a little secret, that secret being that she's the girl he hopes to marry one day. He stands back up, he thanks his parents and tells his mum and dad that he loves them, as well as the fact that he's finally found a new home. His heart is here, in Bloodhaven. And so our story ends with our favourite boy wonder Nightwing, with his rescued pet Haley and the love of his life Barbara Gordon, sitting down, staring into the beautiful night sky. What an ending! What an ending to a series that in many ways brought back one of my favourite heroes to his familiar roots. When this series started way back when, I was so relieved that after countless years of having to deal with this edgy, unrecognisable Dick Grayson, that he had finally returned to us all. He returned to the Nightwing who inspires us, the Nightwing who dares us to dream, but most importantly, the Nightwing who brings the best out of everyone. Tom Taylor had so many fun issues where we just witness how the world of DC just absolutely adores this character, whether it be Superman to the Flash or especially Batman. And granted, yes, Alfred dying does suck, it is a horrible choice, but I really do love how it affected Dick Grayson throughout this entire series, and I loved especially at the start how it inspires him to do better, to be a force of good, not just as Nightwing, but as Dick Grayson. You know, he helps rebuild Bloodhaven, he helps build up his home. And I thought that just the entirety of that was just super impactful throughout the entire volume. But overall, Tom Taylor's run in many ways is a mixed bag. But that is not to say I didn't like it. I thought the run up until maybe issue 100 was fantastic. I'd eagerly wait for each new release every month just to read it on the trade ride back home because I was just that excited to get my hands on a copy. It was only till after that I felt like the series as a whole and my interest heavily started to die down. It even felt like Tom Taylor himself didn't know which direction he properly wanted to take when the book passed its massive issue 100 special. I tried to keep up with the comic, but when we got to that pirate story, I just clocked out completely. I might try to track down the issues sometime later just to give them a read, but in no means am I in a rush. But anyway, fast forward a few months and I noticed that the arc had finally finished, so I decided to give the title another chance and started picking up the books again. Overall, they were fine. There were some good moments, but it still felt like nothing in comparison to what came before it. I was considering dropping the comic again, but when I saw that Tom Taylor was doing his final arc, I just knew I had to lock in once more, and now after finally reading all of Fallen Grayson, I gotta say, it's another mixed bag. At its surface, the Fallen Grayson story is a really decent conclusion that probably just needed a little bit more time in the oven. But then when we look deeper, I found a lot of issues within nearly each part, be it the pacing, the story elements, or even the lore added. Yet Tom would still have such special moments that would honestly really carry the story for me to the point where I'd still really enjoy reading each issue. In my opinion, Nightwing issue 118, the ending of Tom Taylor's run, is by far my most favourite part out of the 5. Tom Taylor always had a moment, to try to reach out and grab you, maybe shed a tear or two, but it always seemed to fall always that little bit short for me. But my god, in this issue I was just blown away. I was blown away by how good it was. Everything about this entry it simply worked. I enjoyed it so much to the point where the previous problems this story had just seemed a little less prominent to me because of how nicely it all ended. Seeing Nightwing finally, after all this time, beat Heartless has cemented itself as one of the best moments within Tom's time on the book. I love how he even got his mini revenge. Heartless killed Zuko, taking away the justice Dick deserved for what that scum did to him and his family, and for the book to end with Heartless needing Dick's heart to survive, but to be denied by him as well as the victory which would have let him die a happy man, was just so impactful. Also, can we take a quick moment to talk about that one panel where Dick confesses he hopes to marry Barbara one day? My god, please DC make it happen, especially after you robbed us the first time. Can't I at least have one of my favorite characters married? It's so rough being a Spider-Man fan, I need something, but anyway, you just can't talk about Tom Taylor's Nightwing run and not say a single word about Bruno Redondo. This man nailed each and every issue he did. In fact, this book easily cemented him as my personal favorite Nightwing artist of all time. His visuals is what I first noticed about the comic before I had read it. It's what got me so hooked in the first place. His style just suited the character of Dick Grayson so well, and to see him go, it's honestly tragic. As far as modern artists go, Bruno has got to be up there as one of the best. Hell, every time I saw an issue without his name on it, the overall feel of the comic was just severely lacking to me. He was a staple of the entire run, and honestly, one of my favorite aspects of the entire series. But that's it for Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. The dynamic duo's run has finally come to an end. And no matter what you might think of Tom Taylor as a writer, or even the work he's produced under Nightwing, there's just one thing for certain. He pulled our hero out of the darkness and back into the light. And for that, I simply can't thank you enough.